but this is not going to be a review per se, but just my initial thoughts after reading the last book in the Divergent Trilogy, Allegiant, which is part of the Divergent Trilogy of Allegiant, the third book, Insurgent, the second book, and Divergent, which is obviously the first book. So if you're wondering why I don't actually have Divergent with me, it's because I got that when you register on Amazon's Audible service, you could get a free book on a free trial. I didn't sign up for it, I just tried the free trial, so I got that as my free audiobook. I will have to get the physical hardcover version of it sooner or later, of Divergent, so I want to do that. So, for anyone who hasn't read Allegiant or the Divergent Trilogy, I'm just going to say spoilers. I'm going to spoil the entire end of the trilogy, the entire end of Allegiant. So, I'm giving you 5 seconds to get out of this video before I spoil it. 5, 4, 2, 3, 1, 0. Okay. Spoilers abound. For the first thing I want to talk to isn't my thoughts per se, but the thoughts of everyone else. I've been looking up, I actually looked at some reviews, and I saw it was getting a whole bunch of bad reviews, and then I read a couple of comments. I didn't read that Triss dies at the end, but I did read that, I loved the couple of Triss and Force so much, so I knew that at least one of them had to die, if not both of them. Or at the very least, it was a very bad ending, and they got permanently separated or something. Because, I'll be quite frank, I read a lot of young adult novels, but almost always, I never care about the romance in them, or the relationship. I just don't. I just want to read a good story, and most of the good stories come from young adult novels, because most of the young adults are what I like, which are now dystopian, which is very new, but mostly supernatural books, like, mostly vampire books, like the House of Night series, which the House of Night series has a great, probably the greatest, not story, because it's really kind of falling apart in the last few books, but the first books were great, but the greatest world in it, the greatest mythology, if that's the right word, the greatest lore. And my favorite vampire series, of course, the last vampire series by Christopher Pike. Of course, anything on Christopher Pike is my favorite because he's my favorite author. But back to Allegiant, I want to say to everyone who gave it on Goodreads or Amazon, which is the two places where I shit the reviews or whatever, a 1 or 2 or even 3-star review just because the main character dies, you're stupid. I mean, I don't mean any offense, but that's just how I see it. You're giving a book a bad review, a bad rating, simply because the main character dies. I mean, I know, I got attached to the main character too. The main character is, of course, the most important character in it. Triss is the most important character in it. But it's part of the story, it's the way it flowed. The story flowed naturally for her death, I feel like. And it wasn't forced or anything. And to give a review, to rate it like 1 star or 2 stars, just because your favorite character dies, or just because for a lot of people, just because you don't have the romancy happy ending, it's childish in my opinion. And yeah, it's childish. I mean, have you read the Divergent books? The books are not happy. They're depressing as fuck. Okay? I mean, so many characters die in each of the books. Even main secondary characters. And just because we now get to one of the 2 main characters, the main character dying, you now give it a bad book because, oh hey! Sorry, I got interrupted. I mean, just because the main character dies, you give it a bad review because all the other deaths, they're not important, they're not the main character. I mean, obviously they're not as important, but still. It's like, most people realize that, hey, this is actually a pretty dark series. Not that light, happy romancy series that I thought it was. I mean, I'm sad that she died too, but it's like, do they read the other books? It's a depressing series, and bad stuff happens. Very bad stuff. I mean, jeez. So anyway, I'm going to move to my thoughts about it, and the death scene itself was very sad in my opinion, but it was very well done. It was pretty cool how they had her mother come in, and she asked if she was done, and it was pretty sad, but it was pretty cool too, the way they did that. I agree with some of the other people. There was a few people that thought it was great, but like gave it 4 stars because of the point of view changes. And I agree. I really don't like point of view changes in a series that never had it. I understand why they did it for this book, to get it from post perspective, and you kind of needed that for a lot of the stuff. But at the same time, what they should have done is like cut like maybe half or a third of the forced stuff from, before the death scenes out, and just had it from Tristan's point of view, because it kind of seemed a bit overflowing, if that makes sense. But I can understand it, and yeah, it did. A lot of time it felt too similar to one another. I mean, a lot of the time you couldn't tell whose point of view it was from unless you read it. And I always read, the name of under the chapter until they took it off at the end, which was brilliant. The name under the chapter, and I can remember whose point of view it was and everything. And so I didn't have too much difficulty. But yeah, they did seem a bit too much alike, and 4 seemed a bit too whiny after he found out he was genetically damaged or whatever. And speaking of that, the whole reason about the whole genetically damaged and genetically pure stuff, it made sense. I quite like the explanation. A lot of people said it seemed obvious, and I haven't really read that much science fiction stuff, so I don't know how many other times they've done this, although I would imagine, considering how simple it seems, it probably was a lot. And I know this isn't science fiction per se, it's more dystopian, but haven't read too much of either genre, and it kind of can fit in with this explanation. But it seemed like a good explanation for everything, and I really liked it. Oh, another thing I want to comment about is, why didn't they have a collector's edition when they did for Insurgent? In fact, I wouldn't really call this a collector's edition, because I got this like 6 months after it came out, and for like $12 or $13, the collector's edition. So I don't know what that was about. If you're gonna have a collector's edition, make it, a collector's edition. I don't like the idea of erasing memories at all, so I'm sad that Peter took that route, although it was funny. Yes, for the 11th time, your name is Peter. That thing was funny right after the death, and I'm sad about the death. I'd rather it have been 4. I know a lot of people would have, because a lot of people don't, probably like me, don't care about romance all that much. Or at least not as much as, the main story, obviously. If it had to be one of the 2 main characters, but, yeah. Overall, I really liked the book. Also, I must say that I read it in 3 days. The first day, I got it with Amazon free Super Saver shipping, so it actually arrived on the 25th, only 3 days after it was released. So that's pretty good on Amazon. I read 138 pages the first day, and it didn't arrive till like 4 p.m. And I had like screaming kids and everything too, so it was tough reading it. And then I got 5 hours of sleep because of screaming kids, and I still managed to read. I forgot which page, but I read about 200 pages the second day, and then I finished it the third day, before 6 p.m. So I read 200 more pages from when I woke up to 6 p.m. And I don't really start reading until like noon, so I was hooked, just like I was with the Sergeant. I wasn't too hooked in Divergent. I was, but it was an audiobook, and I read through those a lot slower. So I don't know what Veronica Roth is planning on doing after this, and I also would like to say the prologue scene with Forrest scattering the ashes was brilliant too. But there's so many plot twists, and the pacing was slower in this book and everything. But the pacing is still fast, and I love fast-paced books. And I don't know if I know she's planning. I hope it comes out in a physical format because I'd rather collect them. A whole bunch of 4 point of views from the first 2 books or something, or maybe that's already out. I'm not sure because I didn't care about that too much. Although I'll get it. But after that, I don't know if she's planning like more books in the same universe but from different characters. Probably not. Or more books, more standalone books, or maybe another trilogy. But Veronica Roth has proven herself to be one of my all-time favorite authors. And I can't wait. I hope she doesn't quit writing or anything. That would be sad. But I can't wait to read more. I enjoyed Allegiant. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, but I tend to rate my books pretty high on Goodreads. That's just the preliminary rating. I want to do a full review of the entire series and a talk of it. I don't know if it would be more of a review or a talk. But I want to do reviews of books and stuff and video games. I don't know how often they would come whenever I do get around to it, but I hope to do it sooner or later, sometime early next year. Maybe I'll start with a couple of this year. But I kind of want to do it to where there'll be, like maybe one every couple of weeks or anything. But if I start this year, it might not be. Although I guess it doesn't matter if it's a huge gap between reviews. It's a huge gap between reviews. Whatever. Whenever I film it, because I film this stuff in my spare time, because it doesn't take up much time, and I enjoy filming. So my initial thoughts on Allegiant is great book, sad ending. But still, the prologue was uplifting with 4 scattered ashes and 4 moving on. And I'm glad he didn't erase his memory at the end there either, like he was going to. So I'll try to have this trilogy be one of my first reviews, maybe my first review. But I'd rather have my first review be a lovely Christopher Pike book, of course. Probably the first book I read, which would be the Last Vampire series, and I'll do the entire series instead of the Last Vampire book. But great book. I really recommend the trilogy. I'm sorry I don't have the physical version of the first book, but this is a fantastic trilogy. A lot of people compare it to the Hunger Games because they're both dystopian and stuff. I must say, if I'm comparing it to the Hunger Games, I definitely like it a lot more than the Hunger Games. I've read all 3 books in the Hunger Games trilogy on my Kindle, and I gotta get the physical version of those too. I want to get the physical version of my favorite books. And yeah, and this is definitely up there as one of my favorite trilogies ever, my favorite series ever, my favorite author ever. Great series. The first book is the best in my opinion, followed by Sergeant, followed by Allegiant, but all 3 of them are still top-notch quality. And usually, of course, the first book is always the favorite. I mean, come on. But, yeah. Great trilogy, great end to the trilogy, and I hope to read a lot more from Veronica Roth. Thanks for watching this episode of my thoughts, and, yeah. I'll try to do a proper review of the entire trilogy soon, and more reviews of books and video games. And, yeah. Until next time.
I hope you like watching this video. If you like it, please subscribe. I'll make more book videos soon. Until next time, wahoo!